Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to CIB. If it's your first time here, my name is Ryan. Thanks so much for joining us on this potentially beautiful day. We'll see how much it warms up. Today, we are continuing our exploration of Paul's antidotes to anxiety. We see them in the 4th chapter of Philippians in the New Testament. And today, we're focusing on a word that might seem out of place in our modern conversations about mental health. That is the word lovely. Lovely. The passage reads, and I know you're probably getting sick of hearing this week after week, but it's good for you to remember this. Finally, friends, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things, put them into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. So far in our series, we have been going through this passage item by item, and we have learned a lot about anxiety and how to manage it. Firstly, we learned that anxiety manifests itself in our heads more often than it does in reality. We learned that truth anchors us when fear tries to distort our perceptions. We learned that nobility calls us to look beyond ourselves even when we're struggling, even when we're anxious. We learned that doing what is right guides us when consensus morality creates deep conflict. And then last week, we learned that purity isn't about absence, but rather about allowing what is true to shine through us undistorted. And today we turn to the words, 3 words again, whatever is lovely. What fascinates me about this word choice in this passage, the New Testament being written in Greek, is that this Greek word for the word lovely in this passage, this is the singular place in Scripture where it's used. It's not used anywhere else. And this word is a word that is trying to welcome beauty back into our spiritual conversations. In this world of productivity metrics and efficiency algorithms, Paul reminds us that life is meant to be more than functional. Life is also supposed to be lovely. Consider the Grand Canyon with me for a second. From a purely utilitarian perspective, the Grand Canyon is just a massive inefficiency in the Colorado River's path to the sea. The Grand Canyon serves absolutely no practical purpose. We realize that, right? It's just a mistake. But when you stand on the edge of that canyon, that Grand Canyon, that's why it's called that, and you look across the ancient stone as it shifts from amber to crimson in the sunlight, who among us would look at it and say, this is just a waste, fill it in? So ridiculous. We could put up a Walmart here or something. Or what about the Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis? From a purely practical standpoint, all we're seeing is just solar particles bouncing off of atmospheric gases. But if you just behold it for what it is, these ribbons of emerald and violet dancing across the night sky, you can't look at that and think that it's not lovely. What we feel when we look at it goes beyond the science, beyond the formula, beyond reason. Or finally, the Sahara Desert. What is more useless than a desert in this world? In utilitarian terms, it's an inhospitable wasteland covering nearly a third of Africa. But in all of its endless rippling sand dunes and the interplay of light and shadow at dawn, the clarity of its star-filled skies at night where there is no light pollution. We encounter a stark, majestic loveliness that has inspired countless poets and artists and spiritual seekers throughout human history. Some of those thinkers we still read today in this very church, gleaning truth and wisdom from them. What do those three examples mean? Well, anxiety at its core is often a response to a world that feels harsh and threatening and unmanageable. It flourishes. Anxiety flourishes when we forget to notice loveliness in this world. Modern science confirms this connection between recognizing loveliness and our own well-being. Studies show that hospital patients with views of nature recover faster than those just sitting inside of 4 brick walls. Workers with access to things like natural light and aesthetically pleasing environments report lower stress levels and higher productivity. Isn't that amazing? But there's something deeper happening here than mere distraction in moments of anxiety. When we encounter something truly lovely, it awakens in us an entirely different way of seeing the world. Some things simply invite us to behold them. That is their purpose. When asked why he wanted to climb Mount Everest, Edmund Hillary said, "Because it's there. I must behold it. How could I ignore it? Look at it. I know, my mind understands. It's a natural accident. It serves no utilitarian purpose in my life or in this world. But its beauty, its loveliness, it demands for me to behold it." And when things that are made for loveliness, when we try to make their function something else, we are neglecting our Creator's intent, our Creator's handiwork. It's like God is saying, look at this beautiful thing that I have created through all of these natural processes. And it's like us going, how could we do that? The beauty of God, the loveliness of the world demands our attention. So one of the most powerful practices for managing anxiety when we realize this is learning to recognize and appreciate loveliness in all of its forms in this world. Why? Because we have an epidemic of just trampling roses, overlooking beautiful stories, walking by, refusing to notice. But when we recognize loveliness, we're not trying to escape reality. We're being reminded of what reality truly contains when we have eyes to see it. I was downtown this week, scurrying to get to a meeting on time. That is always me. Mentally rehearsing all of my talking points for the meeting. You know this drill if you're like me. You're just half present, half living in some imagined future, and in a great, big, important hurry. And while I was standing at a light, I noticed that there was a puddle in the street that I was going to need to jump when I crossed so that my shoes didn't look awful when I walked in for my meeting. And I had a choice in that moment to not observe the puddle, to just keep thinking about what my meeting was comprised of and how I could just think about it hard enough to make it a little bit better, as if that ever works. And I'm standing there looking at this puddle that I need to jump. And in the reflection of that water, it was so cool, I should have taken a picture of it. I could see the dome of the U.S. Capitol reflected in the water, with blue sky and clouds moving behind it. And I stood there for a second and just let myself behold it. It was beauty that demanded that I take a break from my worries for a second and just enjoy it. Of the thousands of people that stood there that day, maybe I was the only one that saw it. Who knows? And as I started looking at this beauty, I felt my breathing slow. I felt my shoulders relax. My meeting hadn't been canceled. My responsibilities hadn't diminished. But for a moment, I saw beyond the anxiety I was feeling. The loveliness didn't eliminate my anxiety by any means, but it did put it in perspective. And this is what Paul is suggesting in this passage when we cultivate a practice of noticing what is lovely. We create in our lives a counterweight, if you will, to anxiety's constant naggings. Loveliness and suffering coexist. Life is not one or the other. These things are inseparable in us. Sometimes they happen in the same moment. The same life, the same breath. And focusing on one certainly doesn't erase the other, but it does bring balance to our perspective. And if there is anything that people in this world living right now need more than anything, it's to be able to look at something and to see balance. So, great ethereal, out there, spiritual, emotional stuff that just exists inside of our heads or in the ether somewhere. But how are you supposed to do this in your life tomorrow morning? We've all lost an hour of sleep that we're not going to make up for 7 to 9 days. Tomorrow morning's going to kind of suck for all of us. What do we do with this tomorrow morning when we're back to reality? And feel free to write these down. We'll be discussing these on Thursday at Cultivating the Heart. Number one, the very first thing we must do is slow down and make an effort to notice. To slow down and make an effort to notice. Loveliness in this life rarely announces itself with sirens and flashing lights. It whispers. It waits to be discovered in ordinary moments. Morning light through a kitchen window, the perfect balance of flavors in a simple meal, the geometric precision of a spider's web, whatever catches us and we go, I like that. Do we give in to it? We must slow down enough to notice. Number two, we must intentionally surround ourselves with lovely things, lovely experiences, and lovely people. Some of us like music. Others of us like art or literature. Others of us are strange and we like things like the intricacy of mathematics or the complexity of a well-designed solution to a problem. These things are all loveliness. And we discount them. We don't even pause to think about how lovely they are. We must intentionally surround ourselves with lovely things. And then thirdly, we can create loveliness by ourselves. Not all of us here this morning are gifted artists. I realize that. But the act of creating in and of itself is lovely. Whether it's cooking a meal or arranging flowers or even simply being out in society and wearing loveliness on our faces. This connects us to deeper rhythms of life beyond anxious thoughts. Slowing down, surrounding ourselves with lovely things, creating loveliness ourselves. When we dwell on what is lovely, reality becomes more than function, utility, and efficiency. And that is a hard statement for me to say yes to. I want to go, what in life isn't better if it's more functional, utilitarian, and efficient? Like, how is anything not better by being those things? I don't know, but sometimes they are. I don't know, but sometimes those things are the things that squash and crush and kick out and demotivate people. Sometimes they're the wrong way to look at the world. And if we're not willing to accept that, we can go no further. If you truly believe that if you were in charge of the world and it would be better, oh my God, is that a giant delusion? When we dwell on what is lovely, reality becomes more than function, utility, and efficiency. And that, friends, might be one of the most countercultural, resistant ideas we can accept during this time, during this season in our country and in our world. To not turn everything into a debate and an argument about function, utility, and efficiency. And to see that there is loveliness that also has to play into every decision we make. And so this week, as you go out into your life, I want to invite you to join me in this countercultural practice, this act of resistance, this rebellion against a world that wants everything to just be loaded onto a spreadsheet and moved around at will. Where is loveliness waiting to be noticed in your life this week? And how might thinking on lovely things transform your experience of anxiety? May we have eyes to see the loveliness that surrounds us, even in difficult times. May we create and seek to create loveliness where it is absent or unnoticed. And in doing so, may we not only discover a peace for ourselves that passes all understanding, but may we allow that peace to just flow out of us, to just leak out of us to others. May we be milestones of peace and loveliness in this world that people in need can run to. Amen.